depending on which device you are using. Once you click on the ellipsis, select the language and speak and show live captions. This presentation will be recorded for future viewing and stored on our YouTube channel under @Kidney Canada. Participants will be visible on camera during the session unless they choose to turn off their cameras. We kindly ask that if you feel comfortable, please join Meera during her breathing exercise with your cameras on in order for her to safely observe and support your technique. If at any point during the breathing exercise you or your loved one feel unwell, please stop, assess how you feel, and if you should continue participating, or sit back and observe. The information presented in this Caregiver Support Group meeting is current as of today, September 18th, 2025. Material shared in this presentation is not intended to be medical advice. We suggest people speak to their doctors about their own medical situation. This information is intended for an Ontario-based audience. Thank you and have a great session.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our Caregiver Support Group, where we are joined with nurse practitioner Meera Chawda, our guest speaker for today. And thank you, Meera, for taking time out of your busy schedule. My name is Uzma Kadri, and I am your facilitator for today, along with Erwin Schweitzer. Hi, Erwin.
Hello.
Thank you. If you wish to ask any questions, you can either write them down in the chats, and we will address them once Meera's presentation is over, or you can ask yourself after by raising your hands in the raise button on the top. And please make sure to stay muted until the presentation is over. And welcome, Meera. Over to you.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much for coming to the presentation today. I'm just going to start off by sharing my screen here. Once again, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming to my presentation today. You might have heard me speak at a previous Kidney Support Connect group presentation, or maybe in person. Either way, I'm so honored to speak today about something I'm very, very passionate about, which is mental health and wellness. I actually work as an emergency registered nurse in Mississauga at one of the Trillium sites. I enjoy advocating for mental health and wellness, and I also have my own Instagram platform on the side where I promote mental health and wellness, and a podcast as well that I used to run. It's called Mind Over Matter, and I've brought along very special people, including Olympians, athletes, and doctors, to speak about the topic of mental health and wellness. Now, when I speak about mental health and wellness, and I tell people that I am also an emergency nurse, a lot of people find it surprising that the two can coexist, right? Because an emergency department is extremely overstimulating. There's lights, and if you've ever visited one yourself, or you've been there for a caregiver or a loved one, right? You're in this very bright, lighted area. You're around all the sounds in the world, and it's extremely busy. And so a lot of people ask me about how mindfulness can coexist with somebody who even works in a very busy environment. And maybe that resonates with you, right? You work as a busy job. You have a busy life. You're taking care of somebody with a chronic illness, or you yourself live with chronic illness. Either way, mental health and mindfulness has a very important role in how we engage with our lives and how we show up for ourselves and other people. And so what I hope to achieve in today's presentation, and what I really hope that you can take away from today, is that mindfulness has a role in everybody's life. And whether you give 5 minutes a day or you give 20 minutes a day, I think you can take away something very powerful from the practice of mindfulness. So getting into this presentation, a lot of people think stress is a bad thing, right? Stress, a lot of the times we think that we can't be stressed. And if we're stressed, that's actually a very, very bad thing. And I'm here to tell you it's not. Stress can be a good thing. So if you've ever heard about the two kinds of stresses, there's first acute stress. Acute stress can be a good thing for us. If you think about it, acute stress allows us to hit our deadlines. It allows us to perform. It increases our heart rate, it increases our blood pressure, and it allows us to perform and achieve the kind of things that we are set out to achieve. Make an appointment, hit a deadline at work, make it to pick up the kids from school. That's your acute stress. Now, acute stress, if not managed properly, can turn into chronic stress. And the chronic stress is where we have a lot of our inflammatory processes happen. It's where we have prolonged mental health issues. And that's what really I want to focus on today is that chronic portion of stress, when unmanaged, can cause mental health concerns. And so the chronic stress is where, you tend, for many people, it may be poor coping mechanisms, living with chronic illness. It may be supporting somebody, being a caregiver for somebody with chronic illness. Chronic stress exists, and a lot of us in our own lives might have had it at one point in our lives as well. So I want to really zone into that chronic stress, and I want to go a little bit into the science behind how we can use mindfulness to target chronic stress. So let's go a little bit into the science of it first. And you might have heard about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, but let's zoom out a little bit and start overall. So we have something called the autonomic nervous system. Okay, so that's our autonomic nervous system, our physiological processes in our body that produce outcomes when you are faced with danger, when you need to perform, when you need to hit a deadline. It's that fight or flight mechanism that you may have. And a lot of the times in our autonomic nervous system, we don't get to control the kind of reaction we have initially because it's a very instantaneous reaction. So our autonomic nervous system is divided into two. We have your sympathetic nervous system and we have your parasympathetic. So let's start with your sympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight. And you're probably familiar with this because you say, I went into fight or flight. Okay, what does that mean? When you go into fight or flight, it means that your blood pressure increases instantaneously. Your heart rate elevates. Your pupils dilate because you're ready to fight a war. That's initially what this nervous system was meant to do back in the day when we were getting chased by bears and when we were having to fight and forage and things like that. This nervous system was meant to protect us. And that's why we have the kind of initial reaction we do. Our pupils dilate. All the most of our circulatory system, all the blood that goes towards our whole body now redirects and goes towards our muscles to prepare us to act and to prepare us to flee or fight. So our sympathetic nervous system is an excellent tool, okay? It allows us to really perform. The problem is a lot of the time, our sympathetic nervous system, you can be in a sympathetic state for a long period of time, which can cause that chronic stress that I was talking about. Now, going over to our parasympathetic nervous system, that's really our rest and digest system. So our rest and digest system is where our heart rate now lowers, our blood pressure comes down, our pupils are no longer dilated and ready to see and find all the fears. It's now constricting. It's allowing us to relax. This is actually where we have a lot of healing. It promotes a recovery. It allows for nutrient absorption because now all the blood flow is going back into our digestive system to allow us to have good nutrient absorption. And so a parasympathetic state is what I would equate to sitting down after a long day and watching some TV because you're so relaxed and you're just getting to have a moment. Or it's taking a walk in nature. It's having the ability to just relax. And so being in a parasympathetic state is what I want to talk about today because mindfulness allows us to be in that parasympathetic state. So now I've talked a little bit about mindfulness and I've thrown the word out, and I know a lot of people have misconceptions about it, or you might not really be familiar with what mindfulness is because we have so many definitions. But I wanted to give you a very, very simple definition of really what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the awareness of sensations and feelings without judgment or interpretation. So it's the awareness of any sensations that we have without any judgment, without trying to make meaning of it, without interpreting what it might mean. In other words, when things happen around us, instead of quickly labeling and reacting, having a sympathetic reaction, having a fight or flight reaction to the kind of things that are occurring around us, we instead take the back seat role. We, instead of being in the driver's seat, we sit down into that passenger seat and instead we observe. And that's really what mindfulness is about. Now, whenever I lead a lot of these sessions, I've led a few sessions here and I've led some at my youth groups and at universities. A lot of people say, well, I kind of failed at mindfulness and meditation. And I say, well, why is that? And a lot of people say, well, because I keep thinking. Like I sit down and I try to meditate and my mind is flooded with emotions and thoughts, and I feel like I'm not really meditating. And to that I say, you still are. You still are meditating, and you are allowed to have a thought as you meditate. I wanted to dispel that judgment right out there because I think we can judge ourselves a lot when we're meditating. And the whole point of meditation is to dispel judgment. So as we meditate today, and as I go through the 2 exercises that we will do today, what I really want to encourage is that when you do have a thought, and when you do in the moment close your eyes and you relax and you think, oh, I gotta pick up my kid from school XYZ, and I have to, oh, don't forget I'm making dinner tonight and I haven't decided what I'm gonna make. Allow that thought to sit there. Allow that thought, observe that thought, but don't get encompassed in the thought. Allow that thought to just be there and dispel judgment. It's okay to have that thought around. It's also okay to observe different sounds that you might be observing as well. So a lot of the times, like when you're meditating, it's okay to notice and label and hear maybe a siren going down, the siren of an ambulance going down. That's okay. It's okay to notice and hear these sounds. Just bring your focus back to the present moment. That's really what I want to talk about in this, when we meditate and are mindful, especially when we do our exercises. But we'll get into that as we practice. So meditation and mindfulness are two very different thoughts and concepts. You can be mindful in many, many ways. We have the ability to practice mindfulness in different aspects of our lives, in different times of the day, and meditation is just one of them. And so what I want to encourage you in this presentation today, and what you take away from this presentation and this exercise, is you don't have to just meditate in order to be mindful. And meditation might not be your cup of tea, and that's okay. And we're going to practice today and you're going to get to see what it's like. But just know that meditation and mindfulness is on a much greater scale. And I wanted to share 6 ways that you can actually be mindful as well on your day-to-day routine. So the first, I guess, way that we can be more mindful is through eating. And I know a lot of the times when we're eating, we want to have the TV on and we want to run the news, or we want to run, our favorite show and we want to binge watch it. But a lot of the times that distraction, those sensations take away from our ability to eat. And there's actually a study that was done on the nutrient absorption that we have when we are eating. And when we eat and we're distracted or we're angry, especially, and when we're in a sympathetic state, we're angry, we're wired, our absorption, our nutrient absorption actually slows down. And our ability to take in these nutrients and vitamins as we eat actually reduces. And so mindful eating actually activates our parasympathetic state, what I talked about earlier with you. The parasympathetic state, mindful eating allows us to reduce distractions, increase our focus, taste the food a lot better, not just physically, but also on a molecular level. We're digesting this food a lot better. Another way that we can practice meditation and mindfulness is through walking, but again, reducing those distractions, using our senses to listen and feel for the sounds that we have. There is actually a Japanese word, and it escapes my mind right now, but there is a Japanese word for forest bathing. And what it is when we walk through the forest and we walk through nature and we take in the sounds, we take in the sense of nature. They're known as phytoncides. These phytoncides are natural essential oils that go into our nose, go into our respiratory system, and actually have inflammatory reducers. They reduce our inflammatory response in our body when we take a moment to smell the sense of nature. So the evidence here is pretty powerful because the ability to walk through nature, just simply taking a walk, being mindful and inhaling this scent of nature can actually allow us to be a lot more mindful, but have very physiological benefits in our body. The third thing that I wanted to talk about is gratitude. Practicing gratitude is an excellent way to be mindful. I do this every morning where I will pull out my journal and I will write down 3 things every single day that I'm grateful for, and I've been doing it now for 2 years. I write down every single day 3 things I'm grateful for, whether it's the same things or whether it's, different things every day. I think the practice of gratitude and the practice of engaging with your life and purposefully engaging in a positive way brings about a sense of mindfulness because it allows you to reflect on the kind of energy that you want to bring out into your day. And I know a lot of the times people are like, well, I'm going to be grateful for the same things every day. Well, great. Focus on those 3 things and write them down every single morning. And you'll be surprised at how grateful and how positive your mind can be in the morning and how you have the ability to mold your reaction towards things in the morning. And so when you write these 3 things down, you're really programming yourself and allowing yourself to set yourself up for success. Okay, so the 4th thing is pausing regularly. And this one's a funny one because I think I need to do this one more often because I work in an ER and I have 1,000 things coming at me and people have questions and I need to do XYZ and I have orders coming in, people walking through, questions from families, and I always need to take a moment because when things get really busy around us and when we have 1,000 things that we are expecting of ourselves, it's important to pause. Pause in the moment, whether it's in the morning, whether it's throughout the day, like just taking that moment and saying, okay, nothing is an emergency, unless it is, but nothing is an emergency, and that you have yourself in the moment and going inwards. Pausing regularly is an excellent way to set an intention. It's an excellent way to remind yourself that you can physically go into a parasympathetic state, lower your heart rate, lower your blood pressure, allow yourself to pause. It's a centering and grounding exercise. Just a quick reminder. The next one is labeling how you feel. And this was an excellent tip that I received when I was in therapy for the last couple of years, where my therapist recommended that a great way to be mindful and a great way to be aware of yourself and how you're feeling is to label how you feel. Sometimes when we can get very heated in an argument, heated in a discussion, right? We're always taught to say, I feel, use I statements. And that's exactly what we're doing, right? When we label how we feel, we're saying, I feel tired. I feel overstimulated. I feel angry. When we can say, I feel statements and just remind ourselves and label how we're feeling, it can help us guide action. When we don't label our feelings and emotions, when we go with the flow of how we're feeling, we're not necessarily being mindful. And so labeling how you feel is an excellent way to allow yourself to label how you're feeling. And the final and not just the only way that you can be mindful is to practice rhythmic breathing, which is what we're going to do today. We're going to practice box breathing. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but it's essentially a 4-step rhythmic breathing. And rhythmic breathing has excellent effects on your respiratory system. It has excellent effects on your focus, your clarity, your cognition. And we'll go more into that later as well. But simply putting a hand on your heart, feeling your chest rise and fall, or counting is an excellent way for you to center yourself, practice mindfulness. And more importantly, rhythmic breathing gives a signal to our brain that it's time to transition from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state. And the final thing I just want to say about meditation and mindfulness is that it takes so much time, and that I am not perfect, and that anybody who picks up this practice even 10 years ago is probably not perfect. It takes so much time. And so 5 minutes a day is so effective, and we don't have to set aside 30 minutes a day or an hour a day, and it doesn't have to be an incredibly high effort activity. It can simply be 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes before you go to bed, maybe 5 minutes in the midst of your busy schedule, whatever it may be. Taking 5 minutes to just reflect, notice the sensations around your body can be extremely impactful. And just like any activity or hobby that we ever pick up, right? Frequency is always a lot more important than intensity. And so running on the treadmill for 5 minutes a day is probably going to be a lot more effective and show a lot greater results than running on the treadmill for 20 minutes once every 2 weeks. And so that's what I really want to encourage, is that even if you have just 2 minutes a day, taking a moment to meditate or be mindful or eat just one meal a day without any distractions is an excellent way to practice mindfulness. So we're going to transition over to the practice portion of this presentation, and I think it's a good chance for us to get practice with what those two mindfulness techniques are. But before I do, I wanted to share 3 really good resources, because I'm a geek, and I could talk about the neuroscience and the science behind mindfulness and neuroplasticity, and how mental health and mindfulness and the action of meditating can actually change the neurons in our body. This is real science. And so I have 2 resources I wanted to provide you. The first 2 are books: The Stress Proof Brain by Dr. Melanie Greenberg. It's an excellent book, and she actually has activities laid out in the book that you can practice as you read each chapter on mindfulness. And the second resource I wanted to give you is less of a scientific explanation, but more of a spirituality explanation. And it talks about a monk's interpretation of what mindfulness and meditation is. And I highly recommend. I've read both of these books, and I have copies myself. The last one, I am shamelessly self-promoting, but this is my podcast, and I had the honor of having Dr. Mitch Abrams, who is a Canadian, Toronto-based practicing radiologist, and he reads brain scans for his job all year round, and he is an excellent mentor to me, because he has spoken to me about mindfulness and the impact that mindfulness can have on your brain as he reads these brain scans. But he also talks about how our brain actually has a connection to our heart, and what we think impacts our heart health, and it impacts our mental health. So just some 3 cool resources. You can access my podcast through a link that we can provide you as well later, or you can search up on Spotify, Mind Over Matter, and you can listen to this. I believe it's like an hour and 15-minute podcast, which is also a great way for you to learn more about this topic. So with that being said, I'm going to close this PowerPoint presentation, and we're going to practice a little bit, which is kind of the more exciting part of this presentation. We're going to do 2 exercises today. We're going to do a body scan, and we're going to do a box breathing exercise. So I'm just going to close this presentation up very quickly. I'm going to stop sharing. And I invite you, if you would like, you can either open your camera and allow yourself to exchange energies with everybody in this virtual room, or you can keep your camera closed, whatever you'd like. A lot of people ask me, what about positioning? Should I sit on a chair? Well, I'm seated on a chair right now, but should I sit on a chair? Should I sit on the ground like Joe is? Whichever one you'd prefer, have a seat, relax, and the whole most important part is that you're comfortable. So I invite everybody we're going to start with a body scan, and I'm going to lead you through this exercise. You can close your eyes if you'd like, I will be. And I just invite you either to cross your legs or keep your feet grounded. And just allow yourself now to focus on your breathing and the rising and falling of your chest. Take a few moments to just notice the rising and falling. So I'm going to lead you through a body scan exercise first. And I want you to imagine that there is a light that's shining from the top of your head all the way to the bottom as I lead you through. Imagine a very pointed light. We're going to start at the crown of your head. You're going to take a moment and pretend a bright light is just shining on the crown of your forehead. Notice any sensations that are arising in this area. Maybe you're furrowing your eyebrows a little bit, or maybe there's a little bit of tension there. That's okay. Just notice. Allow yourself to relax a little bit. Moving on, this light is now shining over and going to the center of your eyebrows. Sometimes we tend to store a little bit of tension here. Just allow yourself to relax a little deeper. Take a moment now to notice that the light is now shining over your eyebrows and your eyelashes, over down to your eyes. Are your eyes fluttered shut or open? Maybe you notice how good it feels to shut your eyes. We're going to focus this energy now over. Pretend that light is shining over your cheekbones. Down to your nose. Notice if you're breathing in through your nose or maybe you're not. That's okay. Take a moment to notice the air going in and out of your nose. Allow yourself to relax into what feels the most relaxing. Moving down over to your mouth. Maybe your mouth is sealed shut a little bit. Maybe it's partly open. If it's open, are you noticing some air move in and out? Simply notice the sensation. You don't have to change anything. This light is now moving over and it's shining down onto your jaw. We tend to store some stress over here as well. Is your jaw clenched shut? Is it open? Simply notice. Feel any sensations in your jaw. This light is now shining on over down to your shoulders. Are you noticing that your shoulders are a little bit slouched, or are you seated upwards? Is there tension? Are you hunched? Simply just take a moment. You don't have to change anything. Maybe your shoulders are rising and falling slightly. I want you to notice it more than you've ever had before. Notice your shoulders going up and down as you breathe. Moving on over now, we're going over to our chest. Sometimes we can be chest breathers. Take a moment to notice if you're breathing in through your chest, if there's a lot of tension there. Imagine that this light is shining onto your chest. Focus in on all the sensations. I also invite you, if it helps, to put a hand over your heart. Sometimes that can help enhance any sensations that you're having. Notice any rising and falling. This light is now shining over. It's moving down from your chest and over to your abdomen. When your chest fills up, is your belly also breathing? Is it moving outwards as you inhale? I invite you to just notice. Place a hand over your abdomen if it helps. Simply notice. This light is now moving over and it's focusing on our lower back. Oh, sometimes we have that lower back pain. Are you feeling that lower back pain? Or are you just feeling it relax? Just take notice of any sensations you're having. This light is now shining over down to your glutes, where you were seated and connected with the chair or with the ground below you. Take a moment to just notice. Imagine this light shining over, going down your legs. I want you to imagine this light is shining down your legs. It's going over any sensations, any feelings you have in your knees. And it's going down over to your legs, all the way down to your toes. Are you having any sensations? take a last few deep breaths here. Whenever you're ready, feel free to open your eyes. So this was a long body scan exercise. It was a little bit of a longer one, but I really wanted to show you that when you go from head to toe and you go nice and slow, you're noticing the sensations in your body and it's allowing you to feel a little relaxed. I feel a lot more relaxed. So we've really allowed ourselves to slow down in this moment. And that's what I really invite you is that even if you take a moment, we talked earlier about pausing regularly. Maybe pausing regularly for you looks like doing the body scan exercise, going from head to toe. And it can take as little as 30 seconds, or it can take as long as 10 minutes. So that's the first exercise I wanted to go through, and I encourage you to use it whenever you want, whenever you feel the need to. It's an excellent tool. And the second exercise that I wanted to go through now is that box breathing exercise that I was talking about earlier. The box breathing exercise is where you are inhaling for a count of 4. You go inhale, 2, 3, 4. Then you hold, 2, 3, 4. You exhale, 2, 3, 4. And you hold, 2, 3, 4. A lot of people ask me about that pause that we're taking in between. What is the significance of this pause? What we're doing is we're practicing rhythmic breathing that I'd mentioned earlier. So we're not simply just because inhaling and exhaling right away is like a form of hyperventilation. That's what we do when we're anxious and scared. Hyperventilation doesn't allow our nervous system to relax. In fact, it actually activates our sympathetic response. So the pausing regularly in between doesn't have to feel strenuous. You're not necessarily holding your breath and making it strenuous. You're simply pausing or simply relaxing. So we're going to go through the box breathing exercise. I will guide you through it. I invite you to close your eyes if that's what makes you feel more comfortable. And I want you to, in your head, imagine that there is a box, and the box goes up for the inhale, horizontal for the pause, down for the exhale, and then horizontal for the pause. So that's the kind of imagery I like to use when I'm doing the box breathing. So you can get comfortable once again, get comfortable, plant your feet on the ground if you're in a chair, or cross your legs if you're on the ground, whatever feels comfortable for you. We're going to close our eyes and take a few deep breaths here. Settle into your breath. Now that you've settled into your breath, I invite you to take an inhale for a count of 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. And pause, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Pause, 2, 3, 4. I want you to inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Pause. Inhale. And exhale. Pause. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Let's do this 3 more times. I invite you to inhale and exhale. Inhale once again. Pause. Exhale. Pause. And inhale one more time. Take a pause. Exhale. And pause. Try this on your own time for just 3 more counts. Whenever you're ready, feel free to open your eyes. Take a moment to just relax, roll your shoulders back. Notice that when we do the box breathing exercise, when we're counting, or when you're listening to the sound of a voice, like you did with the body scan, it's a lot easier for you to focus onto your breathing or your sensations. And so if you're ever a beginner, or maybe you just need somebody else's reinforcement or voice or focus to help you practice mindfulness, it's okay to put on a YouTube guided meditation, practice box breathing, or even just count. These are excellent ways to reinforce mindfulness. And as you get practice, maybe you won't need it, or maybe you won't have to count out loud. But either way, these are just some really great ways to practice mindfulness. So with that being said, this concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you've taken away something from this. Mindfulness is an excellent tool. It helps increase clarity. It helps increase focus. Mindfulness helps with mental health. And as I say to myself a lot of the time, or I say to a lot of people, we have no health without mental health. Mental health is very important and significant in the way that we engage with our lives, with the way that we engage with the people around us, with the way that we engage with ourselves, and how we make meaning. So there's no health without mental health. And taking a moment to be still is just an excellent way to reinforce mental health and wellness. You might have heard another way that a lot of people like to practice wellness and meditation is through yoga. And so if you've ever done a yoga class, or you've done like a sitting yoga exercise, yoga by definition means to still the fluctuations in your mind. And yoga tends to do the very similar thing that meditation does. In fact, meditation is a form of yoga. And so practicing to still these fluctuations in your mind is also just an excellent way, just to give you a better understanding that at the end of the day, all we're really doing is that when our mind is constantly fluctuating, we're just finding an even ground. And so I challenge you and I invite you to find that space wherever you are, no matter how busy you are, to just take a moment and still those fluctuations in your mind.